Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining from today. Thank you for joining our weekly live podcast discussion, all things related to digital transformation. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And this is a, excuse me, bad allergies today, so I apologize for that. But this is a weekly live interview we do each week. Today's topic is Composable ERP, the future of enterprise technology. And I'm going to introduce our guest here in just a moment, who many of you know. And actually, before I continue here, Jan, if you don't mind, do you mind turning down your speaker just a little bit because I am getting a bad echo now. We'll know the speaker on your audio. If you don't mind just turning it down a little bit, just because I can hear the echo there.
It's okay.
Yeah, we'll try that. Yep, that's better. Thank you. Okay, so sorry about that. A little technical issue here. We're on different continents, so there's a little bit of a delay here, but I'm glad to have our guest here today, who I'll introduce in just a moment. But before I jump into the questions I have, we do have a bunch of audience questions we want to get to. So any questions you have along the way, please drop those in the chat. We're watching the live chat here today. And if you don't mind, just drop in the chat too. What city and country are you joining from today? I'd love to hear where you're joining from today. I'm in North America. Our guest here today is from and in Amsterdam. Or I'm sorry, in the Netherlands, not Amsterdam, but in the Netherlands. So we'll let him introduce and explain more explicitly where he's from and his background. And before we, one last thing before we jump in, this is a live interview that becomes part of our weekly Transformation Ground Control podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, go to transformationgroundcontrol.com. This is a weekly podcast we launch every Wednesday. So by being here on our live discussion today, you're part of the live production of the podcast that we'll edit. We'll add other content to, and then we'll repurpose it as a formal podcast episode here in about 2 weeks. So check out transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can find over 200 episodes of the show there. So thanks for doing that. So again, if you don't mind dropping in the chat what city and country you're joining from today, I want to introduce our guest who I love having on the show. I think this is the second time I've had him on the show. I've gotten the good fortune of knowing him in person as well as remotely and virtually as we have here. And someone I admire and respect a lot in the industry. And if you don't know our guest today, he is someone you should know because he is one of the early pioneers of the enterprise technology space as we know it. So it is the man, the myth, the legend, Jan Baan. Thanks for being here today, Jan. Well, unfortunately, you're muted now, Jan. So I think your mic, somehow you muted the mic when you were fixing my audio. Nope, still no audio there. No, I think it muted the mic somehow. Not yet. So we were getting a bad echo. So I think in the process of trying to fix the audio, he muted the mic. So it sounds like you can hear me, but I can't hear you. And I'll check on my side too as we're going here. Bear with us. Sorry for the audience delay here. No, still don't hear you. And while you're working on that, Jan, I'll just get to the audience when they're letting me know where they're all from. So I'll just say hello to a few people here while you're seeing if we can get the mic unmuted on your side. Want to say hello to Chris from the UK. Jackie's joining from Ireland. Thanks for being here today. Graham joining from Port Elizabeth, South Africa. And I think you just did something there, Jan. I heard sound for a second, and then it went away. So whatever you just did might have been the trick. Franz from Austria, thank you for being here. Jason from Dallas, Texas. Eric from Louisville, Kentucky. See Tom and Dean joining from Louisville, UK. Paul from UK. Thanks for being here. Michael from Rolla, Missouri in the US. Gaber in California. Thanks for being here. Raymond from Louisville, Kentucky. Otmar from Netherlands. Diana from Bedford, Connecticut. So thank you all for being here today. And I don't think we have audio on you still, Jan. No, you might try switching mics if you can. We've also got Dan Aldridge, the ex-Baan guy from Virginia, USA. Thanks for being here today. And let's see what else. And Gaber, thanks for your understanding. No worries. These things happen. Yeah, these things only happen when it's one of my favorite guests to have on the show. It doesn't happen. I mean, everyone's a great guest. I love having everyone on the show, but this only happens when it's one of the bigger names that we get on the podcast. But it was working before the show, and there we go. Jan, I think you just fixed it, although your video went out.
So, wait a moment.
I hear you now, but I don't see you.
Okay.
So we're halfway there.
Let me see. You hear me?
We hear you, but you don't see you.
Oh, wait a moment.
Okay. And then here's a question from YouTube already. This is just a YouTube live stream. We're actually streaming to YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter/X, TikTok, Facebook. So streaming to several different platforms. Wherever you're listening or watching here today, we're watching the streams or the chats in all of them. So be sure to drop any questions you have about that. And while Jan's getting his video back up, just to set the context for the conversation here today, we want to talk about composable ERP, and I'm going to let Jan explain this better than I can, but I'll give you kind of a summary to start, and then we'll let him dive into more detail. But one thing that I love talking about, one of my favorite topics to cover, is just what are the alternatives to sort of the traditional ERP systems in the marketplace. I think historically, a lot of organizations sort of look to ERP as the leading technology, or really, in some cases, the only technology that they might consider as part of their overall digital transformation efforts. And what I love about this topic is it's giving us some options, some composable options of looking at different ways we can use microservices, best of breed, different applications that we can pull together in an ERP type of way without necessarily having to have the limitations, the lock-in, the rigidity, the monolithic architecture of traditional ERP systems. And that's really what composable ERP software is. And just like Jan pioneered the ERP software industry as we know it today, he was a founder of Baan, and I'll let him tell a little bit about his background here in just a moment. But just as he was the founder or a pioneer of the ERP industry, he is also a pioneer of this composable ERP movement that we're in the midst of right now, which I find super interesting because it's almost the concept of creative destruction. He's sort of he's competing with or making obsolete the industry that he helped create back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So I find that super fascinating. So and if you're still there, we could just maybe start on audio and
yeah. Should I start? Should I again start in? Is it then I can leave and start in?
Yeah, if you want, we don't see you, but we can hear you. So if you want to maybe chime in, and could you tell us just a little bit about your background and sort of your history and journey, how you got to where you are today?
I started in 1978, 46 years ago, my company, and came by accident involved by ERP. Some people later on we say, is the term okay? Is it enterprise? I think it became never enterprise. It's maybe entity resource planning, or sometimes we call it enterprise resource problems. But okay, if you look to ERP, it's complicated how to build all this stuff together in one database, etc. Now, I came quite early in Unix. We were one of the first Unix players there in the 80s with the Baan shell, and then with HP helped us tremendous, and we became one of the leaders together with SAP in the 90s, and especially winning the Boeing deal with 40,000 users propelled us on as a leading player. And also what we then came did an IPO in 95. But then the company changed a little. After the IPO, I should say, you see the culture is changing from customer intimacy to shareholders' value. And it became then to a certain point like an institute with 5,000 people, close to $700 million revenue. That was in the 90s. And I came to the conclusion after 20 years, I felt a little obsolete because ERP was never built for the browser. And there it became extremely big, more M&A driven. I quit. I changed my role with Tom Tinsley, a top McKinsey guy, where I was a little in the back end. It still evolved. But then I started again. I came to the conclusion because I invested in two companies, WebEx and Top Tier, two leading companies on those days on SaaS elements. I was the only shareholder, the first shareholder in WebEx. I had 30% of the shares. And in Top Tier, I had a majority share. And there I learned the world of microservices and even what you say, the world of the internet. And there I came to the conclusion, can I not combine this one in the slipstream of ERP? Can I then not bring these microservices together? But I failed because the board was not in favor. Clayton Christensen, your favorite guy, and I like him very much, with what you see in these innovators' dilemma, he's saying then disruptive innovation have no chance in an existing company. And I learned that. And I came to the conclusion I cannot do it, and I quit and I start again with disruptive innovation in what we call in Cordis. And there was a BPM company like what we see like Pega. We focus, instead of a silo, we focus on all the business processes and bring them there together. And that was an important element therein. Okay, and that was quite a big help to understand end-to-end processes. And then you have another view, because ERP is not process-driven. The processes are fed from the logic of ERP, but realize ERP is not built for the processes. They do something to the process, but the process is stored in the concrete of SAP, of the data. And that's the limitation of ERP. And everything in one database, and then you have sometimes 100,000 database tables who are also real conflicting with each other, etc. It became extremely complicated. And that's what we see now. Therefore, it was so difficult to bring ERP to the cloud, if you look to it. Now, so that's more or less what I can do. Should I take a minute out? You can talk a little, and then I try. If I start again, let me do. You can talk, and then
that sounds good. And I'll lead it into a question, but I love everything you just said there, and I'll talk for a moment here and see if we can get the video back. He went away. Hopefully he's coming back. Otherwise, this will be a really awkward remainder of our interview here today. But what I was going to say is that what I find fascinating about Jan's background is that he sort of, first of all, he realized the limitations of a model he created back, in the 70s and 80s. By the early 2000s, I think that's the timeline he was suggesting there. By the early 2000s, he kind of knew that there were limitations, and that with the advent of the internet and the way these monolithic ERP systems were built back in the day, he knew that there were some limitations that wasn't going to transcend the post Y2K internet-based world. And so I find that super interesting that he could see that 20 years ago. And I think, there were, people in the industry, I believe, that other people that might have recognized some of the limitations as well. But I think the problem 20 years ago was when he tried this best of breed approach that Jan is talking about. When you try that best of breed approach, and he's back. Thank you. We can see and hear you now. This is great. So I'm glad that worked out. Okay. So this is Jan Baan. He introduced himself, but this is what he looks like. I was just talking about how, it was interesting foresight you had 20 or 25 years ago, that the model you helped create, you recognized that it was becoming obsolete in the post, Y2K world. And I find that really fascinating. And so what is it about, you saw this need over 20 years ago. What is it that's changed in the space now? Like, why do you think composable ERP is a bigger deal now than it was?
Now, the question is, composing ERP is not a good word in reality, but I cannot change it. Gartner came with it. ERP can never be composing.
Right. It's kind of a contradiction.
It's not dynamic. It's not on metadata. And ERP can become composing when it is united with microservices. And that's what we're doing now. And I learned we built composing solutions, but it was in BPM. And it was done on metadata. You bring all this metadata together and have an end-to-end process. But that was in the infancy of the internet. And then I quit again. Chorus became part of OpenText, and I became again, and I moved from PaaS because we built platform as a service, but realized platform as a service is indeed like Salesforce, like ServiceNow is still built in the infancy of the internet, and not in the latest dynamic world. I moved again from PaaS to infrastructure as a service, especially with Google. And there you go in the data-driven, what we say, the semantic data world, and everything is there real dynamic. And these microservices, if you do it on big data, because realize also ERP is not built on big data. If you change one record, you're out. Now, I built already for 15 years, I'm on big data. And then what you see now, what you do, you bring in everything together. Now, but then you can ask yourself, why should you not build ERP again in the new technology? But it's not so easy because the kids of Google do not understand ERP.
Right.
ERP is master production scheduling driven, ERP, MRP, and all the logistics are there. The data model is extremely complicated. Now, and don't make a mistake to make it more complicated, to add more things. That's what we're doing today. We go to the cloud, and then you have vendor login, and the vendors like to, they say, do not saying at your service, but they say, how can we milk you? It's the same element, at your service, milking the cow. It's vendor login, and they hope that you do more and that you stay on the foundation of the data model, and that you bring all those AI also there, and then you destroy yourself. Now, I should say, what I learned from manufacturing, if you build a car, then you have two elements. One element is in manufacturing decoupling, and the other element is in late binding. If you build a car, every 15 seconds, Tesla is producing a car. That means that an hour before you can make every decision what engine should go in. Now, not in an airplane. Then you have a project. But modern manufacturing, what software should be built on decoupling and late binding. And that's what we're doing. And with those two elements, decoupling and late binding, we adopted the input of an SQL database, call it ERP, and we reduce it, we call it sunset, bring it back to the fundamentals. Never do bespoke, because we kill ERP with bespoke. And why should we bespoke? Because bespoke is more human related. ERP is a transaction system. And it's not a BPM system. It's not a case-driven system. This transaction layer have a limitation, and then you kill it and you're out. And then you go to document management. Now, what BPM did, you have two elements. You have a transaction layer, and you have a case management-driven layer. And we call it, we unite them together. Now, that is what we can do today with the REST API. This technology is so amazing what we have today. Now, we can rebuild everything, but you win more on the downstream. It's better to adopt a vanilla system, could be even an on-prem system. Go not too early to the cloud if it makes no sense. Because it is good enough, because the more you go downstream, the more you have a value proposition. And AI is only the downstream. In the upstream, from the legacy system, is too complicated, and there's no need for it. Why should you bring AI in an ERP system? You need it, what Clayton Christensen is saying, the job to be done.
Right.
And what I learned now, when I started, we went to a silo with 100,000 database. We had 10,000 database, was made more optimized. Now, then we moved in the beginning of the century, what we call two processes. But now we're moving to what we call the job to be done is not a process, it's a workflow. And these three elements are united. And some elements could be in a silo. Some elements you bring it to an end-to-end process, but then in a dynamic way, you go a step further, and then you go to dynamic workflow. And that is this AI-driven microservices. They are like Lego elements, very small components. You build it 10 times faster. You are 100 times more flexible. But still in these elements, you should not do everything like these complex data elements. In a car, you have a chassis. Now, the chassis is different than the dashboard.
Right. That's super interesting. And there's so much you covered there. And I love the way you opened that response with composable ERP by definition is a contradiction. Composable, it's not composable ERP. It's composable technology, which is different than ERP.
Yeah, and take it with a car. You have not to go under the hood. But you drive it. Suppose that you did your navigator under the hood and build it. We build it on the dashboard. And if you see the car, under the hood is for the time being good enough. You have four wheels and you have the chassis, and it's not changing. And you have a lot of mechanical elements. But if you go on the dashboard today with the modern cars, you have software. You have electronics, you have software. Now, and even in a Tesla, you have tremendous a lot of old technology under the hood. And therefore, don't make the mistake to make everything modern. Right. It's for the next 10 years, we can deal with this legacy ERP systems. It's like a bookkeeping system on the back end. They're good enough. But don't optimize them. then you kill yourself. And the vendors are not teaching you that, because they have only one element, you're locked in. And you cannot escape. And the vendor lock-in is a terrible element. Now, what we do with these microservices, they are generated in plain Java. There is no vendor lock-in. And the AI is totally incorporated. We do agentic AI. That's what Clayton Christensen is saying. He never was aware of agentic AI, was not there. But for the job to be done, you take an assistant, and the assistant is your agent. And in tomorrow's world, we bring your assistant with yourself to improve your document-related stuff in the downstream.
Mm-hmm.
But there is not so much to win in the totally upstream. And that is, we do the same as 40 years ago. All the processes are the same. And over time, they will step by step replaced by small microservices. But we call that sunset. And that should be done in combination.
So speaking of microservices, I was going to ask you that as a follow-up. What are microservices, and how does that fit into this concept of composable technology?
Now, microservices are like Lego blocks, are elements totally decoupled. They are built in the latest element of what we call of the internet. It's what the Dockerization, the containerization. And all the related elements like data are all united and synchronized automatically. Now, if you deal big stuff, you have not to do it. Sometimes it's better to have a central database. But the more you go downstream, then you have 10 times faster, but maybe 100 times more effective and extremely flexible, because all the knowledge is isolated in a small component. And you have only, and also the development is done in an isolated way, totally decoupled. And in ERP, you do everything in a centralized way with hundreds of people, and the learning is 100 times more complicated. Now, microservices are self-learning. You can learn it 1 second before the transaction. Look how complicated stuff we do with social world, etc. We learn it in 1 second. Now, that is all because the browser is the core element, and the browser is now was 20 years, 30 years ago related by the human, by the social element. Now, ERP was not built for the browser. There is no social element in it. That means people know nothing what is your Facebook data, etc. It could be maybe nice to integrate it. But we do not understand the job to be done. And the job to be done is an inheriting element of the process of ERP. And then is an executing element in a very small team, or maybe yourself is the best team, or maybe 3-4 people. And those people are no longer belonging to the same payroll. They are in the supply chain. They are dealing in different areas. Now, and what you see now by ERP, you have 2 pipes. ERP creates called the most complex pipe is the MPS ERP data. One times a day, and not only a few people understand that, but it's extremely complicated. And that pipe is dying very soon. But you have a totally other pipe, and it's what Gartner called, if you see customer data platforms, we know all the supply chain elements, and this pipe, the social pipe, is coming from this one. Now we are connecting those pipes. And the connecting point is we connect them in big data. We take the Masterwork scheduling pipe, is an SQL database, very old-fashioned. It's all stored in concrete. All this logic is the same. Let's say, the earlier you decouple, the cheaper it is. The more you can build your Tesla car software, the better it is. The same. You have still the 4 wheels are the same, like 40 years ago, like 20 years ago. No, and those 2 data pipes are becoming now in a semantic way what we call in the data in Google's terms is we call it BigQuery, and all the social elements from the customer are incorporated there. And the microservice in 5 minutes sometimes, but in 2 days, they can permanently make what we call apps. And the apps are dynamic apps. And the apps are evergreen, we call it. The app, you should have always the latest technology. Now, and to do this, if we build it in a software factory. Now, and what is the core element of a factory? If you have a factory, the core element is a bill of material. And with the bill of material, you know everything. You have the layers, and then you know from the predicted maintenance, everything is there related to the bill of material. We took the same concept. We have an S-bomb. We build it on a software bill of material, And all the components are everything we do is a manufacturing process. I'm a manufacturer. That's what we learn.
Right.
And not so many people. The people who building this microservice are more choice builders. They are more an associate. They do not understand this ERP world. Now I'm connecting these two worlds. And if you have no element, because ERP is still the foundation. It's not the be all and end all of it, but it's the foundation to start. And what we see today in the world of the Googles, the Amazons, you're missing the knowledge of this ERP data. No one is connecting them, and we connect them totally. Now,
Right.
and then you have a tremendous value, and the value is then on the end, you double at least your EBITDA. In today's world, there is no contribution to EBITDA from IT, nothing. It costs more. It's we consuming EBITDA, we eating EBITDA instead of
Right.
of delivering EBITDA. But here we can do it with half of the people in a two times better job.
Right. Right.
And therefore we need microservices, and that's all what we say productized. And you do it in very simple elements. You have your mobile, everything is mobility oriented. Now it could be your watch, but anywhere, and it's done in an extremely smart UX element. And we do it already for 20 years in UX. The UX is the intuitive part that you help your customer. With ERP, you destroy your customer because the simple end user has no clue what ERP means, and the job is becoming more complicated. If you are a truck driver and you have to deal with ERP data, it makes you even more complicated.
Right.
But the microservice, especially now with AI, they propelling you, and they bring you an agentic AI. That means they help you with a butler.
Right. It's a lot more intuitive and easier to navigate. And one thing that's interesting though, I'm going to pull up a question here if you don't mind, Jan. And this is a big but. Everything you said sounds really good, except there's a problem. There's a problem in the industry right now, and that is, I'm going to pull up this question here from Graham on YouTube. Graham says, further that question, how does Jan view the role and impact of private equity on the enterprise software industry? And I'm actually going to broaden that question a little bit and say, I'll back up and make a bold statement here that there's a lot of money that a lot of investors, a lot of big tech vendors are benefiting from vendor lock, and they're benefiting from this monolithic ERP model. So there's a lot of money at stake here. There's a lot of private equity money going into the cloud and SaaS model within the ERP space. So how does that affect the viability of the innovative approach that you're talking about with composable technology and microservices?
First of all, there's always a problem, but Clayton Christensen already mentioned is what you say. You have I like very much the way he talked over it. Is disruptive innovation is no chance, because disruptive innovation is coming with poor functionality in the beginning, and therefore you stay with the sustainable innovation, who's becoming more efficient innovation, and they're milking the cow. And those companies are making billions of market cap, 10 times revenue. And why is it that a manufacturing company is only making 1 times revenue? And they're making real products. And in software, we're making nothing. They have only skills. It's now even more worse. It's even more worse. All these ERP vendors are nothing compared to the 7 magnificent 7. They have 17,000 billions of market cap. Only 7 companies. All the ERP have only maybe 1 trillion. The Oracles and SAPs. That means they're even poor compared. Now, in tomorrow's world, that is wrong. Instead of 7 companies having 17,000 billions of market cap, it's better to have 70,000 manufacturing companies who are becoming unicorns.
Right.
Now, that will happen in the future. Now we see we are developing tools, and then we take the money as tool builders. But the money should go to the customer. That's the manufacturer. It's the retailer. And they are the poor guys. Because the money today is stuck in even only with the IT builders, the tool builders. But how could a tool builder, even if you on NVIDIA, you have only chips, but you're not having the end product. Now, I prophesize that it will change now. It changed with these microservices. Now, and how could I make this? Now, first of all, I had money when I left Baan company, and I could start again. And I started, and I put $200 million as an investment in it without making money before. It was not easy. And I did it again. But there I make a mistake, and I did it without a customer. Now, when I started now in Rappit again, Farnborough company, I had the reputation to deal with big companies, with a Vallejo, one of the top leading company, 120,000 employees, with a Solvay. With my reputation, I put a new element to Clayton Christensen. Clayton Christensen, disruptive innovation for chance. I did it now with customer intimacy. I took the customer intimacy and go from a top side. I take new technology and build then the missing elements on top of ERP. And therefore I could do this one. And I could finance also this one with the projects what I did with innovative big companies. Now, and there we learn a lot, and there I contribute to the EBITDA. Now, and let me go now a step further. We should focus on customer intimacy. And every customer should have a different model. Every car is different. Why should we have a generic stuff? Now, in a car, there are generic elements, they are more hidden. But in the configuration of software, on the end, everything should be customized. Everything. But in reality, maybe only 20% if you manufacturing it smart, it's maybe only 20%, but this 20% is good for 90% of the profit.
Right.
And then we will have more competition. Now we have no competition. And then we do the most stupid stuff. We do AI by SAP and by Salesforce. And then Salesforce own your AI. Now, AI should never be owned. It's the most dangerous element, never be owned by a vendor.
That's
AI, and what we do, we build AI with no vendor lock-in, and the AI belongs to the customer. Now, I have the benefit a little that I learned the generic part, but the customer owns the specific part. And now the AI is no longer produced to IT people. The business people, because it's consumerized, the microservices, the non-coding are so simple, the business people can do it for 100%. And in this late binding element, the later you do AI, the simpler it is and the more effective it is. Now, that means you asked me one question before when you sent me, but let me answer that question. What means IT will disappear in the future? The CIO will report to the COO and no longer becoming their direct. And what we see, IT should never be centralized. IT should become a component of the decentralized businesses. And that's what we do now. Because this microservice allows you that the business themselves build it. My customers are not going to big consultant firms. They build their software themselves. There's no need for the Capgeminis with 100,000 people, etc., and doing with this whole stuff. Right. Let me be straightforward therein. And Capgemini and Accenture, etc., they're milking the cow and they're struggling. You see, they're struggling tremendous to go with this reputation. They have in India hundreds of thousands of people, but the master is here and the slave is in India. And they are not involved with the latest technology elements. And in these big monsters of ERP, they make that, but that will change tremendous.
Right. Yeah, they're still stuck on this model of upgrading to cloud, big cloud, complicated ERP systems, which is, here's a really good question I want to get to. This is another question from Graham on YouTube. Graham says, another question, given the looming HANA deadline for SAP customers, what advice would Jan give to customers considering a composable ERP alternative? And this is true for not just SAP customers, but any of these big ERP, the big ERP vendors that have you locked in, that are trying to get you to lock in for another 10 to 20 years, which is exactly what the RISE program is for SAP, by the way. RISE is intended to lock you in long term. So is this a good opportunity?
Very good question. Thank you. And what you see now, first of all, is already wrong. Suppose you bought a car and you come into the garage and say, listen, you have to buy this new Jaguar or this anywhere big car in a year. Otherwise, I do no longer the services. Now, that is stupid. How could a vendor say, listen, I'm no longer serviced, and you have a perpetual license forever. Forever, right. You have your license, and you give it up, and you will be milked totally. Because realize, if you come in the cloud, you can theoretically you can stop every day, but the implementation costs are so complicated. You can even maybe once in life you can even step out. And it means every time now they are in the driver's seat, the vendors, to increase every time your cost. That means perpetual is cheaper than on cloud. Now, okay, you should go new technology, but brings new technology a lot. Now, I should say, if you do it, take the minimum part, do half the users, because what you can do, if you take microservice, you do, if you have 20,000 users ERP, you can do it with 10,000 users, maybe 500 users. Now, therefore, the more you bring to it, the more you have. All your downstream users should never be linked. Now, therefore, I should say, take your legacy system, continue, or replace it, do it only vanilla, nothing more, and absolute do it best of breed. Why should you not use Workday for your financials of another one, but why not a local one? People suffer CRM. PLM is ever by, you never should do it, you should do it in CAD/CAM. The CAD/CAM players are much stronger in PLM than the ERP players. And PLM is becoming maybe more advanced with CAD/CAM than ERP, if you look to it. Now, if you do that, then you decouple it. You are becoming more in the driver's seat. You are all locked in, but you are only locked in vanilla. Do not one statement bespoke, because then you cannot go to a new version. If it is vanilla, you can go in 1 minute to a new version. And it should become evergreen, but it's never evergreen. You stay for years. Now, there is no future for this traditional system, but we have to go for the next 10 years with it.
Right.
And we should do it smart, and we should stay together, guys. We know, and we have many good friends, and even if we look, but we even Australia, we see many good friends. You did my regrets. Also, if you look what we all doing, bring nice people together. And we should do it independent and make each other strong, because everything is now locked in this element.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, I see Tom Pierce therein. Okay, what witnesses are there? Nice to meet you, Tom. Now, we see all these people who have this knowledge, and it's good. We were also on your show there last year, but maybe on your next in August, your show, Eric, could be good. It could be an element to maybe unite some things around this element. I should say we should make each other strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jan's referring to our Digital Stratosphere conference that we're hosting in Denver. It'll also be streamed virtually to people that want to join remotely. And Jan, you're going to be one of the keynote speakers there. So we're excited to have you again this year. Your presentation last year was amazing, and I look forward to hearing it again. But I guess, one thing I want to ask you, though, is, you talk about the smaller players, and there's another question I'm going to get to here from the audience about smaller players. What role does, and this is a very self-serving question, I'll admit. I'm going to ask you this question because it helps me. It benefits Third Stage, and I think it helps you too. But how are independent consultants like Third Stage Consulting and others, what role can they play in helping enable and facilitate this movement?
Realize there is nothing was independent. That means there is so much market cap, and everything is paid by the market cap. And there's only one element. The choice was already SAP or Oracle before. And then everything is in a choice because you make the most money there, and the same partners are together and united together in the same firm. And it's the most dangerous part, what we have seen. And we are misled. We are totally misled in this element. You need help, but not only in the element. It's no longer a purchase part. It should be continuously. And you need the independent consultant to optimize your EBITDA, and it's not only to check it, because you go to small components, and there is not so much on the front end to support, but more continuously support. And that is what we should see. At least the independent consultant can warn you and help you already in the beginning, but it should be forever, because it's continuously improvement.
Right.
And I should say, always start small. If you go to these elements, it's too early to take everything in microservices, because then you need a big department, and you should set some things like this. What you see, these companies, what do they do? This in native stuff, who build it like the Amazons, who building stuff for themselves, etc. Now, ERP is, for a while, too complicated to do everything, but at the other end, it's good enough. It's an administrative system. This masterwork and scheduling and everything is still like we did 40 years ago. Now, decouple it. ERP never could have a good warehouse management solution. because they're the retail people downstream of another element. It's not have a good shop floor solution because it's too complicated if you look to it. Decouple that. Take only the upstream elements and take them only vanilla, and maybe your vendor, what you have today, is maybe good enough. Or if this vendor is vanilla, tomorrow you can go to another vanilla vendor because they have more or less the same functionality.
Right.
But what I expect, what we now do already, we have a big breakthrough with reverse engineering, or from screens already with AI, we can generate already stuff. We are coming very close in a year time. If you see all these SAP or Oracle screens, automatically they give me content for creating source code. And we are very close. We are already very close to this one. What we do with Undoc, we did already proofs. I've seen it last week from my people in India already. We generate 70% already, only taking a demo from the internet. And with that, there is input, only the demo was already good for 70% of creating source coders elements. That is coming amazing technology in AI. But the problem is, and we need help, how to implement that. And that is what we do not know. All our business people do not understand ERP, IT in the beginning, and there we have to commoditize them. And that is a process of ongoing improvement.
Right. Now, what do you think which customer profiles do you think are best suited for early adopters of this composable architecture?
At least the manufacturing companies, because they have not, because the retail companies are already further and they are already in and they have already more AI. The manufacturing companies are extremely interesting. Take only your bill of material stuff and take that, and that means decouple it. Take your Infor is maybe my old Baan product, still even one of the best on this moment. They had a Baan shell and they were native already on the internet, if you look to it. Now, they were already with the same source code on the internet. Now, those companies are already good enough, but could be also an SAP what you have, take it, but reduce it. If you have now 2,000 users, don't make a contract for 2,000 users, bring it back to 500 users.
Right.
Then you have more enough. If you bring it back, if now you increase where it is not built for. It's not native built for the internet. It's not big data. It's not containerized. That means it's so old-fashioned.
Yeah.
Therefore, no, but old-fashioned is not bad for the carrosserie, for the car. That means if it's under the hood, who cares?
Right.
But don't do it on your dashboard.
Right.
And what we see now, more the dashboard take it over. And AI is there. Therefore, be careful. Don't change too early, and never be afraid if they don't deliver you. Okay, you should not pay the maintenance. I did with Embraer, a big this builder of these airplanes. We rebuilt with BPM already 20 years ago, and they stopped the maintenance of SAP. Because if we don't need, it's not, if we change nothing, why should we pay maintenance? Because we have perpetual license, we have our perpetual license lifelong. And realize if you give up your perpetual license, you give a lot up.
Right.
Yeah, most people are not aware of it, but your perpetual license are lifelong. You have the right to work lifelong with the product you bought.
Right. And
if nothing changed, no, why should you pay maintenance?
Well, and that's the frustration I have with the ERP and the enterprise tech space right now. As you look at, for example, what SAP is doing with RISE, they're telling customers that you have until 2027. Now they're kind enough to extend it to 2030, but they're basically saying you have to commit to RISE if we extend your maintenance and support to 2030. But you're already paying your maintenance, so. It's
extremely stressful because they make everyone afraid, and the revenue increased tremendous. There's no implementation. It's nothing implemented. It's only they collect only the revenue, and it's 10 times market cap. That means their market cap increased tremendous, but they fall from the cliff. Clayton Christensen if you go to the what we see these innovative design, what Clayton Christensen mentioned, to a certain point, like DEC, these companies they fall from the cliff.
Digital equipment, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. This is equipment, the same. If you look at, that's the investor's dilemma, the innovator's dilemma.
Right.
And the microservices were not good enough yet in this disruptive innovation for everything, but you have not to do everything. Decouple it.
Right.
And we have these APIs to it. These REST APIs are so strong. We have so many strong elements. Now, and we should unite us with many of these independent learners, and they're smart, very smart people in the SAP camp who know so much in depth their business and their knowledge. Now, and then you need only a few guys. You don't need an army of 500 people.
Right.
You need only a few guys to understand this one.
Right. Now, here's an interesting question from Darian on LinkedIn, and I'll have to read you part of it because it cuts off. But Darian says, you talked about microservices enabling real-time adaptability with dynamic apps that are evergreen. Given how static traditional ERP systems are, do you think we'll see a future where enterprises completely abandon ERP as we know it, or will ERP simply evolve into a back-end transaction engine while microservices takes over the business process?
But it's more important. Now, we have these self-driving cars. And to a certain point, there's like agentic AI. To a certain point, it's not self-driving, it's still a steering wheel. But the car is driving better than yourself, but under the hood, we have still the old stuff. There's still mechanical stuff in a Tesla car. Therefore, you can still, in these elements, you can have an ERP system, decouple it, and it's not, you're right, it's only a transaction element, it's so dead like it can be dead. And we talk then over, say, what we call digital stuff as nonsense. On the end, it's only PDF. There's no digital. There's nothing. On the end is a transactional system, and it's dying. The process is dying, and you take it by the end by a spreadsheet, and you continue further. Now, reduce that and accept that. That is statical, but in 1 second, we bring the statical SQL data in a big query from Google. Then immediately from there, it's dynamic, it's semantic. From here, I'm going in a semantic layer, and there we are evergreen stuff. We call it every young. With my S-bill of material, I can take every moment, the latest components. Now, and it's very simple, and it's a software factory. And we do it only with 250 engineers instead of thousands of people in Baanstein.
Right. Now, okay, so what I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment and pretend like I work for one of the big incumbent ERP vendors, and I say, okay, Jan, this all sounds great, but what about that single source of truth that customers want? What about the fully integrated solution?
There's no single source of truth. What we call there's two elements. It's end-to-end business processes and one version of the truth. But here, the single side of truth is only before the spreadsheet. And very early you're dying. And all the CRM systems are already not integrated. And if you take Ariba, you have only one single sign of one version of the truth. Yes, one bill of material. You have one invoice from SAP, from Oracle. The only one version of the truth is you have one invoice. They can send you one invoice and everything is integrated. You can pay one bill. But it's nonsense. There is no single, and there's no one version of the truth, because we go now to the most end-to-end workflow process, and it's still dynamic, and it's still semantic, and still one version of the truth. Now, in this one version of the truth, after an MRP run, one of the data is maybe 1 day old, and on the latest moment, it's one millisecond before the transaction. Now, take care, in the downstream, all this Internet of Things elements can be integrated only on the latest moment. You need only 1 second. If you do it in the ERP, it's 1,000 times too complicated. This data should never be integrated there. Like the car, on the moment you drive the steering wheel, then you know what to do. Now, that is what we call late binding. You have two elements. One is decoupling. And in decoupling, you expect that some things are maybe a week old of data, but who cares? Once a year, maybe you need the financial elements for the stock for the government or so. I mean, and once a month you need some things. A lot of data you need only once of a month. Now, what you do then? You take microservice out, and you bring the consolidated elements once a month in. That's what we did with Vallejo. Vallejo had 40,000 SAP users. and we replaced their we replaced for 20,000 users their project control solution from Microsoft. We rebuilt it in 3 months. We replaced it, and we built in PeopleSoft. There were some things we did it also with microservices, and we bring then the data back in the ERP system, because we realize in ERP you have the broken process, but when you do in Microsoft, it's not broken. You take it out, but you're not out forever. No, you're out and you bring it in. You bring the result back. That's the matter of fact. Most people do not understand this. If you most people say, hey, I leave the system. No, you're not leaving it. You take the data out, but the result once a month before you do your financial numbers, you bring it only once in the same process in SAP.
Right.
Now, there is a secret. That is a secret to understand this.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And one of the questions I want to ask you too is how do you see the balance shifting between best of breed applications or composable ERP or composable technology and fully integrated ERP suites? How do you see those two worlds colliding or coexisting?
Fully ERP is not element enterprise resource problems. And what means that what is ERP is too big? It never became enterprise. Even I dealt with Philips, these guys, they had even 60 instances of SAP. Now, what means then there is even in Boeing, we had 40,000 people on one instance. It was unique in the world. But in Valeda, many people have 50 instances. Now, what is then best of breed? What is all this nonsense? It's all nonsense. You are misleaded. And why is it? You have dear customer, can I buy for you? No, you have to buy. That means you are afraid. We are so afraid. Now, and on average, the CIOs do not understand the business knowledge. And that's the core elements. Aligning IT and business is a crucial part. And this containerized stuff can become in the camp of the business.
Right. Now, can you tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit more about Rappit, if you don't mind. What is the Rappit tool? How does it work? What are some of the use cases about work?
Yeah, we started. I started with a lot. I had a third of the shares in WebEx, and with WebEx we came to the conclusion with the two WebEx owners. We built a BPM solution, and in BPM we had end-to-end processes. And Subramin, the guys, the founders of WebEx, say, Jan, you are the only one who can bring end-to-end processes, and we have web meetings. Can we not connect them together as a war room? And then you build microservices on it. We did it already 15 years ago, and we call it the process factory. Now, that is what I took in Rappit over. I rebuilt it again, and Chorus became part of open text, and they were not so much involved what we did in this part, and I took it for the third time over. I rebuilt everything in microservices, and this is composable apps. That is what we're having. And what we did in Chorus, we built everything therein, but in Baan we had already a generator. We generate with the Baan shell, and I learned that. Now, what we learn now, if you have Mendix out systems, you have a runtime version and you're logged in. And we should not do this. We should generate. Now, what we did, we built a generator to generate Java code from business. And in most times, we can generate 80% already in an afternoon direct. And we can do it direct with the business owners. And then we generate it in plain Java. And we do it no longer in PaaS, that is in platform as a service, the infancy of the internet. I throw everything away at my knowledge, and I start again and adopted Google. Now, I cannot do 90% more. All those DevOps are all related in this, what we call this Rappit stuff. That means, in this factory, these guys are in half a day, they do more than in 20 days before. And most is generated, but the last mile can be built in Java. And the Java developers don't like low code, because then you are locked in. And on the end, you need still, and Java is one of the most best knowledge for the internet using this one, etc. You generate everything, and from Java you can go to Python. And you can combine immediately this stuff to do it. You generate Java, you do the Python stuff yourself, and there are very simple languages. But we increase the productivity of a Java programmer at least by 4 times. And that means we make the Java programmer more productive. And the Java program, and we have then no code, the 2 elements. We have Rappit 2 elements. One is Rappit developer, is generating Java code. And one is the composer element. There is no code. And there you do it in only on the workflow elements, and are totally united together. And you do it there on the workflow element only for business, for the citizen.
Right.
And there you bring the most of your AI, is the best place to bring it there. Because it's simple. You have not to ask the IT guy, help me a little to do some things. Here, it's like you did in the past with a spreadsheet. If you could handle a spreadsheet, it's good enough to work with this no code.
Right. Right. Now, how does this differ from some of the I'll pick on Odoo for a moment. Odoo is an ERP system,
Right?
but it's somewhat composable, modular. How is that different?
It's not composable. If you Pega, it's built in a modern tool set, but it's more built still in the infancy of the internet. It's still a transactional system.
Right.
But much more simpler. It's good enough, maybe, and much more simple. If you look to the functionality, and then with microservice together, they like it, not the same, but it could be a very good combination, Odoo and microservices. Because then Odoo could be a good replacement of SAP or Oracle. Because it's good enough. You have the source code, costs you nothing. Only 400K or so a month or so per user. It's simple. It means and it's still used everywhere. I like the way they do it with my neighbors from Belgium. We speak the same language a little. But you see, it's coming from Europe. Sometimes we bring good stuff there in. That is more new, but it's not the dynamic part of the microservices. But it's very more easier to do to replace the ERP stuff, in my opinion. Right. Maybe we should combine. Maybe with my neighbor, the combination could be a good one.
Yeah, Odoo with Rappit, is that what you mean?
Yeah,
that makes sense. Well,
I respect them very much the way they do. They simplify a lot of stuff. Much simpler to implement.
Yeah. And I think the complication, where there are complications or where there's limitations of a standard system like an Odoo or any system, that's where.
Yeah, but Eric, I think you realize they do not the masterwork and scheduling stuff, etc. They do more project or more Kanban project oriented stuff, I should say.
Yeah.
That means they have chosen and take care. It's not a full ERP stuff.
Right.
I mean, if you go to the whole, if you have a manufacturing company with building aeroplanes and building all this and have thousands of parts, etc., and where you do your masterwork and scheduling, your MRP run, etc. Who is doing an MRP run? Many people talking manufacturing companies without understanding MRP.
Right.
But the complexity is in the MRP, masterwork and scheduling element, and then all the logistic. And if you see all those logistics elements running it every day and how to deal with it stuff.
Right. Here's a question that just came in. I think it's a good one that's worth noting. This is from Vast CNC on YouTube. Vast CNC says, I'm late to the party, but very interested in this approach. Where can we find more about Rappit? I
will send you my email. That means Eric will also, if you go Jan Baan and if you go to my LinkedIn stuff, and even I can give a lecture to you if you like it, because I have to be retired. My 3 sons are running it. I have not so much to say. Only once a year on behalf of the family, we are the only shareholders. But I have time. I support Eric a little to do this stuff, and I can lecture you a little to do this. It's very easy, and there's a lot of I'm writing now my new book, but if you go to our webpage, there's a lot of information what you can see in Rappit.
Yeah, and just be sure you're Googling not Rapid, R-A-P-I-D, but Rappit, so R-A-P-P-I-T.
Like the app is in a rapid way, app is IT. And my grandson is even running it here in also the UX part by us, but he came with a name. We call it a good name. First it was Vanenburg. But Rappit, where you do it in a rapid way, as an app, as an IT, an application.
Yep. So go to RAPPIT. That's how you spell it, and you'll find it the website as well. Here's an interesting question from Jason on LinkedIn. What's become the greatest risks of adopting a composable ERP versus traditional ERP? In other words, what are those trade-offs that we should be aware of?
Take care a little. If you take a best of breed, then you should understand a little the architectural elements. But always you should understand the architectural elements, because you are more complicated if you say you delegate all the architectural elements in a monolithic system. But it's worthwhile to understand your architectural elements, or take a good service that could be an independence also vendor who can help you a little. And it's not complicated, but to understand that. And then the scalability is much better. And take the infrastructure as a service element, could be Amazon, could be Microsoft, but I prefer Google because Google is very strong on the data elements and all the DevOps, etc. And it is so easy. You need no longer 5 architects. The architects are productized in the microservices. You need only one person, and the core element in the future, the most, is the data analyst who understand it, and they should report directly, in my opinion, to the CEO. And the architectural data analytics elements linking to AI is becoming the future. It's becoming the most important one, in my opinion.
Right. So what about just as a way to sort of bring this all full circle and complete the conversation here, what advice would you give to companies that are considering a move towards composable ERP, and where should they start, especially if they're a company that's used to or accustomed to being locked in by a big ERP vendor, or they just have a mindset of a big monolithic ERP? How can they start making a step towards exploring composable ERP?
The best is, there's many people, the best is try to find some people who understand SAP, Infor, etc. Understand a good integrated guy, an individual, independent guy who's maybe working in SAP world, etc. so far, but they are isolated. The SAP brings no money to them, but they understand. You need a guy who understands the ERP world, and they can help you. A little older guy could help you, and with a young kid understanding his microservices, you can do a lot. And it's not complicated. It's very simple. I understand this stuff. I'm not. It's not rocket science. Right. It's simple, and you inside you should understand it, because now you're locked in. That gives you a freedom, and you immediately will increase the tremendous EBITDA. There's no investment involved if you do it well, because do it not in a big bang way. You do it is no risk. You do it step by step. First, you take what it is, and then you every time sunset a little. Don't go to big implementation elements. There's no reason for it. Do it step by step, reduce it, and then if you take something new, take care that you only take vanilla. Everything you should do more is so dangerous, because then with vanilla you are limited, locked in.
Right.
And then you share the whole generic one, who is proven by thousands of customers. And you destroy it with you do customization, you have no attention, you do it yourself, you mislead it, and you do it with wrong technology, with the technology from the last century. Right. And you should do it here, you should do it with the most newest technology. If you do it in BAPI type of technology, that's stupid what you can do. Because you take for your customization, where the human is involved, customization is done for the downstream, for the workflow, and not for the upstream. And you destroy it because you bring it in the upstream and you're more locked in. And AI is the same. Never do AI in the ERP part. Right. There's no reason for it. The later, the better. And by the way, Eric, I will time. If missing time, now we can do it another time. We can do a second part of this version. But anyway, up to you.
Yeah. I think we should do a deeper dive into this at some point. But and you're always a fascinating person to speak with, and I have so many questions, and I know the audience does too. So many questions I didn't get to in the interest of time. But one thing I do have to ask before we go is, and it just occurred to me as we were talking here today, I didn't plan to ask you this, but what do you think from a change management perspective, when you think about big monolithic ERP systems, part of the problem and part of the risk is that you're forcing your organization into sort of a shock to have to adapt to however the software works. Whereas microservices, it seems like, would be a little bit more enabled.
Say what you do with microservices is what you do now already. You replace only your document management type of stuff on this moment. Become familiar and rebuild only and maybe if you look, even if you see with all this email type of stuff now, replace this. And if you look to Microsoft Office, more it's like something from and SharePoint. Why should you continue too much there? Rebuild your own microservice and do it there, because why should you need email in the future and deal all this stuff? On this part you start. And then you say, "Ooh, wow, I see now." And then you take the APIs and you take as is, that means you're destroying nothing in the beginning.
Right.
And start with some small elements like a leaf element, or and take this simple downstream elements as an integrated dynamic app, instead of doing some things like document management and this type of stuff. And then you adopt the data, then you learn the data, and take care that you should understand your data stream from your MRP. You kill nothing, and then you say, oh, I can do with half the users. If you take now, you do all those stuff more in the document and in all this stuff in the ERP stuff. Decouple that.
Right.
See ERP only as a pipe, as a data pipe. And then you see step by step, why should you not build another shop floor control model? But ERP should stay forever there. Your financials can stay there. All the compliance, let it stay. No risk. And now you go to a new version, it's 100 times more risk. You go from Rise anywhere and you go to HANA, and now that is the biggest risk. Right. That is there you take the risk.
Well, that's why 60% of SAP customers have not started and have no plans to move to.
And the money is already in the market cap.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's I think this model you're talking about, I think in my opinion, the biggest challenge in getting widespread mainstream adoption of this microservices and composable concept is all the money that's at stake with these big incumbent tech providers. So I think it's important to really keep an open mind and get in.
And everyone like to come around you, because all the complication stuff is there. Now, if you bring it down, do the same element like you did 3 years ago. There is nothing to win. You win only downstream. Your money is downstream.
Right.
Never upstream. Upstream is only the compliance. It's like a bookkeeping system. Now, take care. Now, your inventory is there. But why not taking your new stuff on top of your inventory, make some new stuff, like a little warehouse management. And it's not rocket science. You do it in the afternoon. And start. But crucial part is, the big value is if you can have these two pipes, these data streams. If you can have this transactional data element from an SQL database, if you can pick it up in BigQuery with AI, boy, now there is the money. The money is not in the downstream. And downstream, and even, why should you pay the maintenance? But okay, maybe you are afraid, but there's a lot to win even. Yeah. You have even don't give up your perpetual license.
Right.
You give your gold is out, and then no, they milk you more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And realize, and if you go to a new system, at least you should expect that you do it with half of the users, or maybe 20% of the users.
Right.
And then it's good enough. Then you take the core element, can go for another 5 or 10 years. Maybe you say, okay, the way I do my inventory and the way I do my purchase stuff. But then you go say, why not procure to pay? You take it immediately out. The most attractive element, procure to pay and order to cash, are dynamic elements with consumers outside. Never should do an ERP. And it's extremely simple process. In Rappit, we do it very, very easy. We built very simple procure to pay type of elements. There you have a lot of money already if you bring it in. All this, we undock, we take all the documents in a dynamic way. Every document automatically for 90% immediately become a dynamic document. You take it already out, and then see like a procure to pay, order to cash. This type of elements are where you make a lot of money, and then you learn to deal with the same data. Now your data is not integrated. Your transaction data is dying. And it is not, and you feel it with a spreadsheet, so stupid like you can do in every boardroom, is gambling, because they need first a spreadsheet to explain some things, and it's not reality. Now, here we go to dynamic decisions. It must be semantic. And that is what microservices are doing us.
Right.
It's extremely simple.
Yeah. Sounds simple. I mean, it sounds simple enough. I think if we can get out of our own way in the industry and be open to other ideas and not just hone in on these old school models, I think it's a good thing to consider.
And then we have another element. Then the vendors are forced, otherwise they make no money, to make their APIs or even the connectivity better. Otherwise, they're in business for them.
Yeah.
We should force them. Now, I can take everything out. We are professionals to bring it out. But at the other hand, they should even have to make it more open But now they close everything. Even in the healthcare, it's more a dramatic element. If you look to these terrible healthcare systems, because all the compliance are still even therein. They misused everything, and therefore they make too much money from the legacy, old-fashioned stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned yesterday a little. Now, I'm born in ERP. I built ERP, but I'm little with you. You said yesterday, I heard from you, you hate ERP. Now, I hate ERP and I like it. It's more or less the same. Now, ERP still, it's nice to understand it, but do it then step by step in the new way.
Yes. Yeah, I think, the video I published the other day was I hate ERP systems, but I think it's a more appropriate title would be I hate what ERP systems have become. Because I think they're becoming a more of a problem and a nuisance in the industry in some cases. Well, I appreciate your time here today, Jan. And one thing I do want to share with the audience here is if you're interested in more digital transformation trends and just things to be aware of as you're defining your digital strategy, check out this QR code right here. This is our annual digital transformation report. If you scan this QR code, you can read that for free on our website. You can learn more about some of the trends in the industry. You can read independent reviews and rankings of different technologies in the space, as well as implementation best practices to be successful in your digital transformation.
I have an initiative for you. And it could be, suppose that some people are interested. No, I can you can arrange it very simple to do maybe a lecture with 20 people or some things, or could be different. For me, it can be free of choice. That means I made my money already. That means I have something to do. Otherwise, my wife is punishing me when I'm stay to us. She's the boss at home, saying to us there. But that is in an easy way. We all learn from it. Who knows? And there's so much to win, and if you can arrange some things, Eric, you have all the facilities for that to do this.
It's a great idea. If you're willing to do it, I'd love to do that. Maybe a follow-up, sort of a mastermind with a smaller group of people. We could sort of dive into it a little bit more detail. It's a great idea. I love it. Well, good. Well, I appreciate you being here today, Jan. I appreciate the audience questions. We had so many good questions, and I apologize to those that we didn't get to, but great questions. And we'll save some of these. Maybe next time we have you on, we'll have some great questions to start with. So thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it, Jan. And we'll see you next time.
It was fun. Nice to be you there. And sorry, I hope that I'm a little wake up call, but that you're still sleeping tonight. And but it's fun to do this, and it's not rocket science. Nice meeting you, and looking forward.
Yeah, likewise. Good seeing you, the audience. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Again, same time, same place. We do this every week. We do these live digital transformation interviews. Becomes part of our Transformation Ground Control podcast, which will be coming out in 2 weeks from tomorrow. So go to transformationgroundcontrol.com. And I'm getting some notes here that the QR code is not working, which I apologize for that if that is true. If you just go to thirdstage-consulting.com and go to the resource center, the first thing you'll see is the 2025 digital transformation report. So I apologize for the QR code issue here. That's what happens when you have a non-techie like me trying to generate QR codes on the fly.
And Eric, it's maybe good if you send me also the questions, then maybe there are some elements where if needed, I can even be available or see.
Absolutely. We'll do that. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Same time, same place. We do these live interviews every week. So